My name's Mark.
My name is Gabe.
And we want to welcome Mark Tripodi to the program for the very first time.
Yes.
From Cornerstone of Hope. Mark, welcome.
Good morning, Mark.
Mark and Gabe, thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
Oh, it's great to finally meet you. We've been kind of communicating for about a month here, and we've finally figured out a way to make this happen.
No, absolutely. I'm looking forward to sharing a little bit more about our mission and ministry. And
So we want to know some about Cornerstone of Hope. This is basically a common place for those who grieve.
Yes.
Tell us about how this came about. Just kind of take us to the beginning.
Yeah, for sure. It's very very personal for my wife and I. We're the founders of the organization, but it came at a significant price. And I don't even know if that's the right word, but back in May of 2000, so we're coming up on 22 years that we lost our 3-year-old son suddenly to a meningitis situation. And our son Bobby was, at the time of his death, was the middle of 3 children. We had an older daughter. We had our son Bobby and a younger daughter who was about, I think Taylor at the time was about 6 years old. Bobby was 3. And our little Francesca was just about 16 months when we had this life experience. And we were believers, knew God, but didn't have like this amazing relationship with Him. I could just say it that way. And this really got us to a place where it just floored us to our knees and really shattered everything and allowed my wife and I. We were just asking basic questions about our faith that we had took for granted up until that life experience. Mm-hmm. And eventually we reached out for support. We were a family that were looking for support for our kids, for ourselves, me as a grieving father, my wife as a grieving mother, as a married couple. And there was, at the time, it just seemed like there was a lack of resources in the community. And when you found them, it was either finances were a barrier, or there was a lot of unorganization around grief support in Northeast Ohio.
I know I found there was large waiting periods.
Yeah, for sure.
To get into them. Yeah.
Yeah, and so somehow, some way, God got a hold of us through. And I'm not going into all the particulars on our journey, but really felt called to not waste this pain, to turn our pain into purpose. To create a place a home-like environment where those that are grieving could come in and receive the support that they need, whether it be counseling or support groups, regardless of financial wherewithal, if you will. And we started very small. Like I said, Bobby died in May of 2000, and I would say definitely God put it on our heart within the first, probably around the 10-month mark. I was having a episode at the funeral at the cemetery late at night one night, and honestly, like I said, I didn't hear voices from the sky, but I just heard this voice, deep within my heart, and just God saying, "Do not waste this pain. Do not waste this pain," and that just came over and over again. And wouldn't you know it, my wife heard God's voice as well, and she kept hearing God say, "You need a place. You need a place." And so we say today, years later, that Cornerstone of Hope is a home-like, a place, is that home-like environment, a place where pain isn't wasted when you're coming in with a life experience of losing a loved one.
What do you mean when you say home-like environment? Give us an idea.
Yeah, a lot of times, as I'm talking about our services, counseling and support groups. You kind of have this vision of maybe more of a sterile environment, kind of this clinical setting, if you will.
Right.
And believe me, we have professionals that are serving the families and individuals each and every day. But part of our culture is just we have a beautiful campus. Like the landscaping is sacred in a sense. And you walk in, there's front porches and rocking chairs on the front porch. And when you're walking into the waiting room, it's lamps like you would have at the home and couches out in the waiting area. And then when you go into the different counseling rooms, it's not this sterile setting, that kind of stereotypical where there's you're laying kind of on your back and spilling your guts to your counselor. It's you're sitting in comfortable chairs and inspirational quotes on the walls for encouragement, and you're home. And that's the environment we've created.
So a comfortable environment where you can grieve. You
That's
can
right.
actually, whatever you need to do.
That's right. Yeah, we were just talking right before I got on the air. Is like we want people to grieve out loud. And that's what you come to Cornerstone to do. A lot of times especially for our kids, they're the only ones in their neighborhood or even their church group or in their school that's lost a mom or a dad or a brother or sister. And when they come to Cornerstone, we have a couple special theme rooms for the kids. We have one of our friends painted this underwater mural for the kids' therapy room, and they come in and there's dolphins and turtles and fish painted on the wall, and they come in and they start naming the different animals that are there painted on the wall, and it just gives them the sense of, man, I can be creative here. I can share my heart and my spirit, and we do a lot of art therapy interventions with the kids and teens because we want to enter their world of creativity and play so they can grieve out loud.
Okay.
Yep.
You mentioned Mark Tripodi is with us from Cornerstone of Hope, and you mentioned the idea of grieving out loud.
Yes.
And I wanted to combine that with something else that just knocked me back in my chair when I first saw your website a few weeks ago. The idea of not grieving alone. Has our society made us react to situations of grief where we have to think, I got to be tough. I can handle this. I can do it. I can do it by myself. I can get through this.
Yeah, I think even if you just look at, I was blessed when our son died. I mean, I had an employer that really took the time and gave me the time that I needed to kind of get back into the routine. But if you look at I'll just call, I hate, it's dry conversation about like just the policy is around paid time off when you lose the loved one. It's, what is it, like, I don't know, 3 or 5 days or something,
like 3 days.
A couple of those days might be travel days, and it's kind of like you're expected just to kind of show back up to work.
Right.
To be, they knew who you were before your loved one died, and they expect that same person to return to work at some point.
But that's not necessarily the case.
That's not the case. And so you do feel definitely isolated because a lot of times, like I said, not just for the kids, but a lot of times for the adults, you might be the only one in your workplace or even in your church group that lost a spouse or lost a child, and you don't have anybody that could really relate to what you're going through. Yeah. And so sometimes it's not intentional, Mark. It's like, they don't know what to say, and so they say nothing. And then that's further isolation. They don't even acknowledge the pain a lot of times. And so, if you're in a position of leadership, whether it be in church or in corporate world or nonprofit, I could tell you first and forehand, my wife, Christy, would say the same thing. We want you to acknowledge it. And just coming and telling somebody, listen, I don't know what you're going through. I'm so sorry. I'm praying for you, and just that acknowledgement to say, I recognize you've lost a loved one. This is a significant life event, and I don't know what you're going through, but I'm here. I'm praying, whatever I can do to help. That's just opening up having that posture of receptivity to hear some feedback and just to share your heart is everything.
I know the last couple of years, with COVID, I'm sure you've probably experienced some things since that. It seems when Mark was talking about people grieving alone,
yes,
COVID seems to have made that even bigger than it was for different reasons. Yep. Some people are ashamed that maybe they didn't get vaccinated and somebody passed away or whatever. And they've hidden this. I mean, to the point where some people don't even put in the obituary why the person passed.
Correct.
Right. And it's so much shame. And this is happening with people's children. So like the parent might pass and the children are staying quiet about it because of all these beliefs. And, so I seem to see more people just grieving alone because they don't want to tell anybody.
Yeah, and I meant to say it just on my last little comments there, and that's at Cornerstone. You do not grieve alone because in that support group setting and those retreats that we have, you're coming together with people that have experienced a similar journey,
right? And
you really establish new friendships and relationships that are lifelong. But COVID, let me speak to that a little bit. It was lot of factors around that, not just COVID deaths, Gabe, because what happened was because of, the fear and just the unknown of people not gathering together to have a traditional wake and funeral home service, not having a traditional celebration of life in the church because really not being allowed to gather together as a community and even family, and not being allowed to be by your loved one's bedside, whether they be in a hospice setting or a special care facility. There were so many barriers and boundaries that were set up through, like, what we would say a healthy grief process is, I'm next to my loved one who dies. I get that closure at their bedside. Now I'm surrounded with family and friends that come together at a funeral home, and we're showing pictures and sharing stories. And then, God willing, I'm at a beautiful church service where we're having a eulogy and praise and worship, or soft, somber songs that get us in touch, with, we're happy for them because as believers, they're going to where we want to be, right?
Right.
And they show us the way, but for those that are left behind, it hurts. And so a lot of those rituals were taken away.
Yes.
And so you have further isolation, lack of closure, then
more
on top
trauma.
of it, yeah.
Right.
Then like you mentioned, then there's obviously death due to COVID and the shame with that.
Yes.
And then there was a spike too in the mental health part of it.
Oh yeah.
A lot of drug use, overdose deaths, unfortunately suicide.
Right.
A lot of times because of either job stressors or other stressors in life were the outcome. And so there's just so many factors. And we've been busier than we've ever been as a ministry. We have 3 locations throughout the state of Ohio: Cleveland, Columbus, and Lima area. But we're trying to find creative ways to get people in quicker. We're definitely continuing to do what we've done for the last 19 years. Because we started back in 2003, is to for people not to grieve alone, to gather together in those support group settings, in the different retreats that we have. We have a summer camp program for kids that is coming up. I can give you some dates on that.
Oh, we'll talk about that in just a second.
Yep.
Yeah. Spending some time this morning with Mark Tripodi from Cornerstone of Hope, 3 locations here in Ohio, and talking about the idea of not grieving alone. Mark, it is so good to have you here.
Thanks for having me, Mark and Gabe. Really appreciate it.
I know we were kind of on our way to another kind of a subtopic here. Gabe, you want to keep us going here?
Oh, we were at a subtopic?
Oh, wow.
I was on my own topic, me.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
That's a Gabe topic.
That's right.
Well, I pick up things as I go through that I know hit me. I work here at Christian Healthcare Ministries. We work in healthcare. So of course, everything's changed since COVID. We see things very different. And I liked what you said. You said we're trying to get people in quicker. I know there's some significance to that. I know that we have seen a change in what has happened, even with the Christians since COVID happened, especially the ones that have lost family members. They're not okay.
Right.
They're not doing well. So just maybe speak to people that feel like they're okay. Because, I lost my dad maybe, 12 years ago, something like that. It takes a long time before you're okay. And I remember those, if I had a good couple months and I'd be like, oh, I'm good, I'm better.
Yep.
I haven't cried in 2 months. And I could just fall apart the next day.
Absolutely.
And go all the way backwards. So what is the significance of people getting in quicker, getting treatment quicker before things are out of control?
Well, we want to be that safety net for them because there's a variety of ways to grieve out loud or express yourself, whether it be through the different programs that we have, but there's some unhealthy ways as well. And so we want to try to get to a family sooner than later, because a lot of times, I know for me, myself, on my own grief journey, turned into a lot of selfish, bad habits, and that were hurtful to me, and quite honestly hurtful to our Lord. And so it's you want them to come in and not we're not there to take away the pain or take away the memories and to kind of get over this. There's a reason we call it a journey. because it's a long time. And so we want to encounter that family, that individual, and just let them know that, listen, we can give you some tools and resources, a lot of testimony from other clients that have been through the program that meet people on support group night, just to give them that encouragement that, you're not alone in this, and it's okay. And it's okay. My own mother told me, and we were blessed to have other children after our son died. And she would know, and my wife and I, whether it be vacations or holidays, she could just tell it just wasn't quite the same. And she even said, she said, Mark, I think around the 10-year mark is when you got your spark back. Now listen, I had a lot of joys and celebrations during that time, birthdays and things like that, but it takes time. And so for people just to hear that, to be patient with yourself, and I always say there's not something wrong with you when you grieve. There's something right with you, because to the extent that you love that person, whatever that relationship would have been, whether it be a spouse or a child or a close friend, a grandparent that helped in your child in raising you, it's okay to grieve, and it's normal. Doesn't mean it's easy and it doesn't hurt, but there's actually something right with you to grieve, and even grieve for a long time, I would say. It's okay.
And being able to see that spark in 10 years is a blessing. Some people don't. My cousin, her son died of meningitis at 15.
Yep.
At a soccer game. Something from the grass. He was gone maybe 3 hours later. She has never recovered. She has never. We never have seen the light in her eyes again. And every time that we see her, her husband is holding her so tight, because she just has not recovered. She's living. Yes. But she has not recovered. So it's something that it is a lifetime thing.
I call that zombie mode, because I was there. You're like the Walking Dead. You're functioning, you're breathing, you're going on throughout your day, but there's just not this zest for life.
Every time I see her, I'm waiting for something different. It's never different. She speaks. She's wonderful, beautiful person, but that sorrow is always there.
And for me, I would say it was, I took, I'll say, the crucifix for granted. That image of a suffering servant. But ultimately, also in that night of that cemetery, before God was like kind of reaching out to me saying, do not waste this pain, there was a little encounter with our Lord prior to that moment. And I kept saying, why God? Why me? Why did you let this happen? And I heard it so clearly. It was almost like he had me up against a wall, like saying, hey, listen to me. Listen to me. And then he kind of came alongside me and said, my son died too. My son died too. And I was just there in tears. And so, listen, I would say to your friend or anybody who's just kind of that pain is building up and they haven't unleashed it, we serve and love a grieving father who knows what it's like to lose a loved one. He lost a child. And there is hope. We're in this Easter season. I tell my kids the 5 most important words is this: Jesus rose from the dead. We serve a God who defeated death. This world is hard. We're going to suffer. That's why the scriptures tell us, unite our sufferings with Christ. We need to do that. And in doing that, we unleash that grief, we unleash that pain, and somehow, some way, God plants those seeds of hope so that we can be reunited with our Lord someday, with our loved ones.
Okay, so I got 2 favors to ask.
Yes,
Mark.
sir.
Mark Tripodi has been with us from Cornerstone of Hope. Number 1 favor is tell people how they can be in touch with you if they really want to talk something over, find out more about how you can help them.
Yeah, absolutely.
How can they do that?
Reach out to us. We have an easy phone number, 216-524-HOPE, 216-524-HOPE. That's 4673. Go online, cornerstoneofhope.org, Cornerstone of Hope, all one word, .org, and just find out more about our services and what we can do to journey alongside you on your own journey.
My name's Mark.
I'm Gabe.
And we've been spending time this morning with Mark Tripodi from Cornerstone of Hope. 3 locations here in Ohio, the one closest to us, in the northern part of our listening area, in Independence.
Yes.
Yeah, Mark, great to have you.
Well, thanks for having me. We were spending a lot of time together this morning, and I really appreciate that. So this is a gift to us and our ministry to be able to say who we are and what we do. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
And we're glad you're there. We definitely think this is something that our listeners need to know about. So I just want to talk about some of the services and things that you provide at your Cleveland location. And then one quick question. Who is your youngest? Who do you think is your youngest person that you're serving right now?
I would say, from an individual like counseling or therapy point of view, 6 years old and up.
Okay.
There are some obviously parents that have lost a spouse and they have younger children. We do have a lot of books and different kind of interventions we can recommend and resource if you have a toddler that's speaking and understands memory. That has there's some things we can do for I would say 3, 4, and 5-year-olds, but when it comes to like participating in group or camp, that type of program,
they're a little older.
6 years old and up.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. And I was just asking. I know we were talking with Roman about the people from Ukraine.
Yeah.
And they had a lady there who's, of course, they had just lost the father.
Yes.
And we're starting to see that more and more, of course, with people coming from Ukraine. So I just wondered about what age group, because the first thing he said to us, he wasn't not so much concerned with the mom. He said, we've got to get that boy some help.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, like immediately. So, I just, great. So you can start with toddlers. All right. So tell us about your services, your support groups, what they can expect from the Bereavement Support Center.
Yeah, one of the things is, we are a professionally led organization, so we do have individual counselors, or we do have individual and family therapy. We have counselors on staff, licensed social workers, art therapists. So that's one of our core programs. And the other one is our support groups. And what's unique about our support groups is we do offer specialized care by type of loss. So if you have, if you're a young widow and you want to be with other young widows, we have a special group for them separated by their age and demographic. If you've experienced a loss of a loved one by suicide, we keep families together that have experienced a suicide loss. Unfortunately, overdose, the opioid, fentanyl epidemic is still very prevalent, and we have special groups for families that have lost a loved one to overdose as well. And we still separate by age as well, so we have kids groups, teen groups, young adult groups. They're not quite married yet. They're out working professionals and don't have a family, and I'll call it like that 20 to 30-something groups, so we have specialized groups for them as well. So our support groups are offered 4 times a year. They meet once a week over an 8 to 10 week period. And so in addition to counseling and support groups, we also have, summertime is busy for us. We have our youth summer camps. And what I want to speak to directly is up in our Independence office. It's a day camp, Monday through Friday, July 11th through July 15th. And it's an 8 to 4 program, Monday through Friday. And the kids come in the morning. We provide a light breakfast, and they do grief activity. They're separated by kids their age. Most of them have lost a sibling or a parent. And then in the afternoon, they're kids. We go out and do field trips and have fun, and want them to be kids and have an experience of going to the zoo. Sometimes we visit the local sports teams' practice facilities and get a little mini camp with some of the players and things like that. So we do a lot of like I said, grief activity and the tough work in the morning, and then the afternoon, it's that traditional camp experience.
Wow.
Thank you for coming in. Thank you for sharing not only your story, but giving us an idea of the kind of stories that you're working with every day. And one other thing I think I noticed, and I have to ask about, everybody who walks through your doors understands they're walking into a Christian organization.
Absolutely.
But you are helping those with little or sometimes no background of faith, or a different background of faith than we might be used to, correct?
That's right. Yeah, I mean, our motto there is, just as Christ would have welcomed and served all, so do we. We receive them with open arms. We meet them where they're at, and but when they're willing to kind of open that door from a scripture point of view, from a prayerful point of view, to take that Christian journey with them, then we do that. But we're not church in a sense of like doctrinal or evangelical. Right. We're church in a sense of we're open arms and we meet you where you're at, and we come here to offer hope to you. And I'm proud of that. We've served believers, Absolutely. Non-believers, believers of other faiths, and they feel welcome there. And to me, that's a testament to our mission and ministry. We've been doing it for 19 years. We're supported primarily on donations. The majority of our services are at little or no cost. We do charge a fee for the individual counseling, but if there's an inability to pay, we have a financial assistance program that can help families. But if you're looking to support our mission and ministry, you can go online, cornerstoneofhope.org, offer a donation. The kids camps that we mentioned, it's a participation fee. It's a $25 fee.
Wow.
And that doesn't, that's just more to say you're committed to coming and things of that nature. And even if they couldn't afford that, we would figure it out. So,
and it's 4 days, that camp?
It's 5 days.
5 days, starting July 11th.
July 11th through the 15th. And then we have a weekend overnight camp program in the first weekend of August.
That sounds fun.
Yeah. So, and that one is completely free because it's grant funded as well. So, just come check us out on our website, cornerstoneofhope.org. And if you're in that situation where you're grieving the death of a loved one, I can tell you this: you are not alone. You are not alone. Cornerstone is surrounded by individuals that come in each and every day. Have 150 counseling sessions a week. Our spring group sessions right now have over 115 people participating in a variety of support groups. And you're also not alone when it comes to our God, because we serve a God who knows what it's like to lose somebody they loved. We serve our Lord who lost his son Jesus. And so you are never, ever alone in your grief journey.